Hello, welcome to Washtenaw Community College. My name is Devin and I'm an advisor at WCC. And as you can tell, this is the virtual part of the group advising and coach session to prepare you to start here fall 2020. Just some important things I'd like to mention as we begin. If you have a notepad and a pen close by, I would definitely suggest grabbing that for this part of the session. There's going to be some important information we're talking about on the website that will be valuable for your time for fall semester, but also your entire time at WCC. So as we're moving through this, feel free to make notes. We also have the chat available for you to post things. At the end of our time here during the virtual session, we will have an advisor jump on to answer specific questions that you might have. We do know that a lot of this information is important for you to know, but some of it can be a little bit more general. And so if you have specific questions, we'd like you to post those at the end in the chat, or you can unmute your mic when an advisor jumps on. So what you'll notice here is the slides for the presentation as we get started. We'd like to talk to you about what advising really is when you're at a college. Our role as the advisor is to guide you along the process of figuring out your coursework, helping you figure out what your career might be if you're undecided, connecting you to vital resources on campus, whether that's your career advisor, your coach, learning support services, library and tutoring services that we have. We really do want the best for you, and so our hope is that you're working with us on a consistent basis. Now, your end of it is to come prepared for your advising sessions. So whenever we're meeting with you, we hope that you have taken a look online at some of the course offerings that you could be taking, that you're prepared for the session to ask specific questions. A lot of times we have students who get ready to see us and they've waited for this appointment for so long and then they forget their questions. So if you can write them down, that certainly would help. When you're talking about what a lot of advisors do most, it would be helping you in preparation towards your degree and your profession. So that's what we're going to start with, are your degree requirements. When you come to Washtenaw, you have the option to study a lot of different things. And I think right now is a great time in the chat, if you don't mind, just posting what you're thinking of studying. Some things from previous sessions that I've seen, students are interested in HVAC, they're interested in welding, nursing, Michigan State for exercise science or for business, University of Michigan for engineering. So put those in the chat so that we can have a little bit of interaction during this time. What you'll notice here at WCC is that we have certificates and we have degrees. You'll see a certificate is between 10 and 30 credits, so it is a smaller credential. And an associate degree is just that. It's a degree, and it's a 2-year degree comprising of roughly 60 credits. So you might be asking yourself, or me in this virtual format, what is a credit? You might not even know what that is. On our website, I'd like to show you what that means. If you click on the WCC Gateway and click on View Classes, you'll be able to search for any course here at the college. And our most common course is English 111. We indicate fall semester and we scroll down. You'll notice that the course title is listed here. Any prerequisites for the course are below. You have the status of the course, whether it's full or waitlisted, or it could be open, which means that there's available seats, the course registration number, date the semester begins and ends for this course, keeping in mind that some of them do start a little bit later, like in September. You have the days and times of the class. So if you'll notice, this is a completely online course. And what that means is that the responsibilities and assignments that you're doing throughout the week are done at your own pace and your own time. You just have to be submitting them by specific deadlines that your instructor lays out for you, but you can access it at any point. Down below, for classes that have specific days and times, you'll notice the days and times that you have to meet for that class. So your coach has probably already mentioned to you that we have virtual classes available this fall. You'll see the virtual class is here, and it's through Zoom, just like this in most cases. And then you have your designated days and times to be on Zoom for that class session. Now, the credits, getting back to that point, you'll see English 111 is 4 credits. And what that means is you're responsible for roughly 4 hours of in-class work during that time. So if we're scrolling back down, you'll see that most of the classes are approximately roughly 4 hours. Now for English 111, they're only 3 hours, but there is a writing center component that is built into that time. Now, when we're talking about expectations for the course, if you're in a 4-credit class, you're expecting about 4 hours of in-class work during the week. However, we would tell you that the expectation is you're studying or doing outside class work for roughly double the number of credits. So a 4-credit English 111 course, you'd be responsible for about 8 hours of out-of-class work each week. So keep that in mind when you're building your classes in your schedule. Depending on how many classes and credits you're adding, you need to be aware of that. As the credits swell, so does the amount of work for your planning. So a common question, what is your major? We ask this to a lot of students, and hopefully by now you've posted your thoughts of what you're going to study in the chat. At the community college, we don't call it major as much as we call it program of study, because we do have certificate programs that lead to jobs from just a few courses. Because we do have associate degrees, we actually call them programs of study. So you might hear it spoken both ways at WCC, major or program of study. Now, when you're selecting your program of study on your application, you indicated something for us on that admissions application, and that is now a part of your student record. Chances are some of you went through that process and you just quickly selected something to get through it, and it's not actually what you want to study. So a good way to check that the system is updated is to go into your MyWCC, which you can do once again from the gateway. And the student dashboard is going to be a good landing place for you about any of this information regarding your student profile. You have a box for your student email, as you'll see here. You have a box for your Blackboard, which is all of your online work or responsibilities. All of your classes will be available online through the Blackboard link. And you also have your MyWCC. So when you go into your MyWCC, you'll be able to go under the Student Services tab, and under Student Records, if your program is not current, you can see an example here where a student has their major as business, you can request a program change at that same spot to update us on what you actually want to study. Now, at the moment, your program might actually, your current status might say applicant. An applicant means that you're in the process still of applying to the college. If this is the last admission requirement you have to complete, once you finish this session and complete the survey, we will mark that last step as complete. And after roughly 30 to 40 minutes, you would change from an applicant to a student, and your MyWCC would be reflected to stay the student services. Now, if you're curious about what your program of study or your degree requires, we can actually show you how to find that information out. Under the home page of the website, you'll see the Learn button towards the top left. Browsing down, you can see the Browse Our Offerings By section, and you can click on Academic Pathways. The Academic Pathways section categorizes like or similar subjects by categories. So if you're interested in business, it would be under the Business and Culinary Arts section. You'll see all of our certificates listed at the top. Advanced level certificates are below that, and those are what require a little bit more coursework. And then the degrees, which are approximately 60 credits, would be listed below that. Let's say you're interested in studying business administration transfer so that you can go to the university to get your bachelor's in something related to business. You click on that and you'll see a landing page that explains a little bit about that program. And at the bottom, when you click on requirements, it gives you a semester by semester breakdown of the recommended courses, and in some cases, even the order of those courses. Now, these are built for students who are studying at a full-time schedule, and we'll talk about what that looks like a little bit later. But if you're someone who's not studying full-time, you don't have to necessarily worry about following exactly the recommended layout that they provide. Now, I'd like to show you a different way that you can access the requirements for your degree. So once again, if you go into the WCC Gateway and you go to your student dashboard, and then you can click on Check Your Progress. And this will open up a program for you called DegreeWorks, which we call your academic GPS. It's a gauge for you to be able to follow the requirements laid out for you in your specific degree. So I'm going to share with you now a different screen, and this will be your example of what DegreeWorks looks like. So you can see here, this is our test student. Wolfpack is the student, and the degree that this student is pursuing at the top is an associate degree in human services transfer, which is our program for a student interested in social work. You'll notice there is a degree progress bar at the top. This is not completely accurate. You'll notice this student is already 17% complete, even though they have not finished a single class. And the reason for that is any checked box under the degree requirements or academic level section does get included into that calculation. But as you move along, it will become more and more relevant to you completing. So you'll see your major requirements are the first section. The category of course is listed on the left, and the specific course is listed on the right. If you were to click on the course, it would give you more information about the credits, a course description, and the levels needed for that course. The bottom section is your general education, and it lays out for you 6 different categories of requirements. And in some areas, it will give you a specific course, like for social work or human services. The requirements for social sciences are very specific. And in some categories, it gives you the ability to choose one class in this long list of different course offerings. Just be very mindful that for natural science, social science, and arts and humanities, it must be 2 different subjects that you're choosing. So as an example, in arts and humanities, you can't choose both subjects to be humanities. They must be humanities and something else. If you wanted in your degree works, you could complete what's called a what if, where you change your degree. So for students who start studying something and they realize it's not for them, you can actually change your program. Well, it's not an official change, but you can change the degree and see what it would look like if you did change. So let's say a student wanted to study, instead of social work, they go for a degree in science and they wanted to do environmental science. You can then process the what if, and it would give you a new set of requirements based on that what if. And it looks like it's taking a little bit of time to load, but it's a great tool for you to be able to access different degrees depending on what you might want to study. And really, students change. I myself changed 3 times when I was studying at the university. So really, that tool is wonderful for you to be able to see how your credits that you had already completed would change to the new program. And I should mention, as you complete them along the way, you'll get a green checkbox in each class that has completed to show you your progress as you move along. Now, a big thing about a community college is the fact that you have the ability to start here and to transfer somewhere else. A lot of you might have had goals in mind to go to the university this semester, but because of COVID, it didn't make sense for you. And so you're joining WCC for a semester or 2 before going to the university. Some of you have plans to complete as many courses as possible here to save money before transferring to another university. Either way, we're used to that. That's a big part of who we are, is helping students transfer on to a university to complete their program. It really is a great way to save time and money. For students who are anticipating a transfer and not doing just a degree or certificate only at WCC, a good place to start is the Michigan Transfer Agreement. And this is also a wonderful place for students to start who don't know what they want to study. The Michigan Transfer Agreement was a need that was established years ago to help students who start at the community college to take some courses and know that those courses will transfer to the university. So what happens is the state made a requirement for this to be created, and it allows you to take around 30 credits of general education coursework at WCC that will move to one of the 15 public universities across the state. Pretty much every school will accept MTA except for the University of Michigan. They have their own general education curriculum, and Michigan State requires MTA as a part of their general education requirements. So for those schools, make sure you're working especially close with an advisor. But to show you a little bit about the MTA and the transfer process in general, I'd like you to go back to the WCC Gateway and go into your faculty staff dashboard. You can then scroll down the page until you see academics, and you can click on the transfer guide section. So this area of the website is specifically designed and designated towards students who have a transfer intent. So we will open a couple of different links here to reference. And the first is that Michigan Transfer Agreement section that I was just mentioning. So these are your general education classes. When you've heard growing up or in high school, hey, maybe think about going to the community college to take your basics or your gen eds. This is essentially what that is. You have 6 different categories: English composition. You have your second category of English or communication. For this area, if you're planning on going to a more competitive university, we would suggest most likely taking English 226. You'll have your math requirement, 2 natural sciences, 2 social sciences, and 2 arts and humanities. And you can see 2 different disciplines or subjects are needed for those last 3 categories. So use this as a good reference for the general classes to take. The next section I want to talk about are the transfer guide section. Some schools have done a great job of working with us in collaboration on particular subjects so that you kind of have a guide of what courses to take at the community college for that university and program that you want to study. So an example of that would be underneath Eastern Michigan University's transfer guides. If we choose Washtenaw Community College, and for students who wanted to study exercise science, they've got a nice little guide to show you what courses at WCC on the left could be taken in preparation for their exercise science program and how those transfer in to EMU. So that's a good example of a transfer guide and how it kind of lays out for you some classes to take towards a particular program or major. The next area I want to show you is the articulation agreement section. Underneath this section, you'll see a lot of different schools who have created specific agreements that are a little bit more involved or a little bit more robust than the transfer guides. And a good example would be for students considering Eastern for business, you would do EMU Business Admin Transfer. And this that pops up is the articulation agreement. Now, the way this reads, the first page, this is all the stuff you can take at WCC. On the left are the WCC courses. How they transfer into Eastern are going to be on the right. The general education courses, or MTA, is listed at the top. And you'll notice for some of the categories, they do want a specific course. So in social sciences, one of the 2 that you take must be Econ 211. The next section is the diverse world requirement for Eastern. So any student at EMU must complete the diverse world requirement, and listed are the possible courses that would count towards that requirement at EMU. Now, the really cool thing about this category is most of these courses are built into the MTA. So if you can be intentional about taking one of them listed here that counts for one of your other MTA sections, you can count it in both categories. And then the last area here is your WCC program of study or major courses, and in this case, your business classes. So this top section would give you your associate's degree. And what's great about an articulation agreement like this is Eastern allows you to then take an additional 22 credits with them at the university. So most universities will only accept up to 60 credits. In this case, EMU will take up to 82 credits. So the term that we give this is a 3+1. After completing 82 credits, it's pretty much like completing 3 years of school towards your 4-year bachelor's at WCC, which you can imagine saves you a lot of money. The next page of this articulation agreement will explain for you the classes at that next school, in this case EMU. So the remaining 42 credits to give you your 124 needed to graduate. And then the third page would give you contact information for both the business advisor at WCC and the undergraduate advising center at the College of Business at EMU, if you had more specific questions about these agreements. So hopefully that gave you a good breakdown of the transfer. I guess the one other section I didn't mention that I should is the course for course equivalency guide. We've picked on EMU quite a bit, so we'll look at Michigan State University. If you're a student who knows you want to go to MSU and you'd like to see specifically how your WCC courses would transfer on a one-to-one basis, you would use the course equivalency guide. So you can select WCC. Let's say you wanted to pursue something related to chemistry at EMU. You can search for the chemistry courses, and then it will show you on the left the WCC classes and how they transfer in to Eastern. Now, some of them don't transfer as an exact course. Some of them may say something like general credit, or some of them will even say does not transfer, so that you know what classes to take specifically. What we often suggest is looking at MSU's program and what they suggest for coursework. So if a course or program were to say require chemistry 142 and 162, then you know at WCC you should be taking Chem 122 to fulfill that requirement at MSU. Now, obviously, there's a lot of steps involved in that. Just make sure you're working with your advisor while figuring out your transfer. If you decide that maybe transfer is not something you're interested in, you want to pursue one of WCC's terminal degrees, which means you start and end it at WCC. We have a number of different options that would lead directly to jobs in our occupational education area, like HVAC, welding, automotive service tech. But we also have very highly esteemed WCC health programs. As you'll notice from this slide, our health programs, a lot of them are competitive. It requires a secondary admission process. And so when you are applying to WCC right now, you probably indicated something like nursing or PTA on your application. And we made your program Healthcare Foundations as a certificate program. What that means is we have designated you as a pre-nursing student or a pre-PTA student. You need to complete the prerequisite courses to be able to apply into that program, because all of those programs have on the degree side a limited number of seats. And so they take the best of the best students. The way they determine that are largely based on the grades from those prerequisite courses. So you take the prerequisite courses, and we'll use PTA as an example. There's roughly 4 or 5 prereqs to take for PTA. Once those are completed, you apply to the program trying to meet that application deadline, and we only admit 20 students a year. So the 20 best students are the ones who are accepted into the PTA program. So you would not actually be in the PTA program until you were accepted. You'll see here on the left, there are a couple certificate programs that do have some prerequisites as well, although these are not a competitive admission process. You just need to meet the minimum requirements. Now, when we're talking about your academic planning, how to figure out which courses to take during your first semester with us and how many courses, there's a lot of factors to think about when planning your schedule. A lot of us advisors would ask you, okay, do you plan to be full-time or do you plan to be part-time? And what we really mean is how busy is your life right now in thinking about how many classes you should be taking. Those of you who are working a lot, those of you who have a lot of family responsibilities should probably not consider taking 15, 16 credits your first semester. Maybe for you, a part-time semester of 2 to 3 classes to start would make the most sense. Some of you might be an incoming freshman who is fully devoted to their coursework, and you want to be taking a heavier load. Then we talk to you about what it would be full-time versus on-time. So the first, full-time, is a student taking at least 12 credits. And full-time is really a financial aid term. Students who are hoping to maximize their financial aid would want to be a full-time student and take at least 12 credits. Students who want to make sure that they graduate in a timely way would need to make sure to take about 15 credits per semester, or 30 per year. Because then you could do 12 credits in fall, 12 credits in winter, and 6 credits in spring, summer to maintain that pace. That would get you graduated within 4 years in a timely manner. You might also have some other requirements within your course that you need to consider that make them a little bit more work. A lot of our science courses also have labs, and the labs are additional work on top of the normal in-class responsibilities. So many different things you need to consider. Now, when we're trying to figure out which courses to put you in, a big thought that we're trying to consider is your academic levels, to make sure that you have the required placement levels to take the courses for your program. So one thing you'll see from this slide is there's a number of different ways to determine your placement level. The first is your SAT or ACT scores that you had from high school. If you have those sent to us from College Board, or if they're posted on your high school transcript and you can send us those transcripts, we can use those scores to determine your placement levels. If you had a GPA of at least a 3.0, we can also give you college level reading, writing, and math scores based on that GPA. Now, if those 2 factors are not enough, or if you don't have those 2 factors because you did schooling overseas, then we have our own placement tests that we can give you. AccuPlacer is our placement test for reading and writing. ALEX is our placement test for math. And CAMLA would be our placement test for ESL. And if you want ESL courses, you should tell your advisor at the end of the session so they can direct you to the right person. Now, when you are given placement levels, we need you to know what the various levels mean. College level for reading and writing is level 6. And when it comes to your reading sequence, a level 6 in reading means no course is required. If you're below college level reading though, we do have some classes that are pre-college to help bring you up to college level. Level 5, we would suggest you take ACS 108. Level 3, we would suggest you take ACS 107. If you have a level 5, simply signing up for ACS 108 would allow you to take college level courses if you have college level writing, or as you'll see here, if you have a level 3 writing and take ENG 090 with your level 5 reading class, we can give you overrides as an advisor for other college level courses. Now, I will say this is the first semester that we're offering this to students. So make sure you're working with your advisor who can help you give those overrides into college level courses. If you're below level 3 and you get a level 2, then we would suggest ENG 050 as your first course for writing. And college level would require ENG 111, that course that we searched earlier. Math is a little bit more complicated when it comes to levels. You can see here we have everything from level 1 to level 7. College level for most programs is level 3. Although if you're pursuing something that's a little bit more technical, like engineering or computer science, then you might need a higher level math. The big thing to know about math, different universities want different math courses, different programs want different math courses. So make sure you're working with your advisor to determine which math course is best for you. Now, maybe my favorite question that I get from students who are coming to college, should I take math right away? A lot of you are nervous about taking math. You hated it in high school. It could be part of the reason why you're starting at a community college in the first place. Or some of you just haven't taken math in a long time. So you want to know, should you take the math test right away to try to take a math class in your first semester? And what I prefer to tell students myself is it depends on you. If your goal is just to make sure you have a successful first semester and taking math is going to really question that because you really hate it, I would say let's hold off on math for at least a semester so that you can have a strong first semester. If you're somebody, though, who wants to take a program that requires a lot of math, potentially like business, engineering, computer science, it probably does make sense for you to take math before you start your semester so we can make sure that you have with the level that you need. Now, on these slides here, you're going to see a couple examples of a first schedule for you based on a full-time load, as you'll see on the left, or a part-time load, as you'll see on the right. And these are just examples, but they can be a good guide for you in planning. So if you're wanting to be full-time, we would suggest for sure probably taking English 111. You then have the option for your math elective, and then a humanities and a social science elective from the MTA list to total between 15 and 14 credits, depending on the classes you choose. And then your part-time schedule, you have the option for your English, and then 1 social science and or humanities, totaling between 7 and 10 credits total. So this can kind of be a good first guide for you, your first semester. Now, for all my undecided peeps out there, for those of you who were like me and didn't know what in the world you wanted to study, we do have a lot of resources for you. The first thing I'll reiterate again that you see on this slide is the ability to do the MTA classes to make some progress towards courses that will count towards your degree and most likely for transfer. We also have a couple of courses you could take to help you figure it out. ACS 111 and ACS 151. And for students who think that maybe something in the healthcare field is a good fit for them, we have HSC 103, which is our healthcare exploration course. Now, we also have career advising available in my office. Myself and a number of other advisors and counselors are trained career advisors. We can give you a career consultation appointment where we could even determine that giving you a career assessment like MBTI or SII would be a good fit to help you figure out what to study. And if you're not familiar, MBTI is the Myers-Briggs, where we will have you do a computer-based assessment asking you questions related to your personality and who you are. And based on your responses in those questions, we then figure out a little bit about your personality and match you with careers that are good fits based on that personality. And then the SII is the strong interest inventory, and that assessment is related more towards your interests. So we match questions you answer related to your interests with professionals in the field who have answered the same questions. And then maybe my favorite resource of all is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So if you were to go on Google and type OOH, you'll see the first link is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. You click the link there, and it will bring you to the website put together by the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Stats. It allows you to search for any profession. So let's say you're interested in becoming a social worker. You can search for that career in the search bar, click on the profession that relates to that, and it will give you a summary of that profession. It will tell you the average pay as of 2019, the typical minimum level of education needed. This one has a different number of ways to become one, but some will say bachelor's, some will say associates. It will also tell you the job outlook for the next decade. And I find this especially important. A lot of you are coming to college and viewing this as an investment, and as you should. And so the money you're paying now for your classes and the time you're putting in, you want to pay off in a job. And so a good way to figure out whether or not you can get employed from what you're pursuing is to see whether or not that job will be there when you're finished. And so you can see the social work profession is expected to grow about 11% in the next decade, which is much faster than average growth. Just so you know, I think average growth from looking on this website is normally between 4 and 6%. So this is a pretty good profession to get into to get a job. The website also tells you a little bit about what they do, their work environment, and you can even drill really deep into some state and local data as well. But a section I especially appreciate is the similar occupations section. And this would be for students who really don't know what they want to study, but have an idea of what they like. You can go to a specific profession, click similar occupations, and then it will give you a list of the professions, their job duties, the entry-level education, average pay, and then you could even click and drill deep into those different professions. So as we wrap up the virtual session today, a couple things I want to point out before I bid you adieu and say goodbye. If you wanted to meet with an advisor after the brief session following this presentation, because you have a little bit more personal questions or you have a complex situation, we do have the ability for you to do that by visiting our advising website. So on the WCC homepage, you can click on advising in the search. The first link you'll see is advising listed here at the top. If you click that, it will bring you to our website. And we have our telephone number listed here, which you can call to try to make an appointment to speak with an advisor. And we do have our virtual drop-in advising here as well. So you can click this link, and through Zoom, you can meet with an advisor one-on-one to discuss your courses. This is available Monday to Thursday, 12 to 6, Fridays from 12 to 4, and even on Saturday mornings from 9 until 1. We have the virtual drop-in advising. If you have any registration issues, maybe holds on your account, or you're having trouble registering for classes, feel free to also give our Student Connection a call at 734-973-3543. Well, I hope this information was helpful for you today. We're excited that you're starting your academic journey with us at WCC. Stay tuned for the Success Coach to sign you off, and an advisor will be on shortly to help you as well. Thanks, and have a great day.